Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today, backed by popular demand, is Chef James Rohrbacher, and he is going to be doing an amazing culinary demo and also teach us a few things about pret-a-manger, something that I have not heard of till today. Please welcome him back to the show. It's very nice to see you again.
Thank you. Good morning, Chef AJ and viewers and listeners. It's good to be back. Let's talk about that word, pret-a-manger. Basically means ready to eat. So we hear the word gourmet tossed around a lot in the food world, and there's a lot of loose definitions of what is really gourmet and what is not. But regardless, what I'd like to do today is go through some of the recipes and chefs that I've been inspired by in my chefing career, and show you a recipe or two by each one of them. And we're going to go into the recipe and we're going to pick out like key ingredients and ways that you could totally simplify this beautiful thing to make it your own. And most of these things can be made in under an hour. So we're going to talk for about the first half hour about various recipes and extracting the important ingredients. And of course, we're going to just kind of ignore in the ingredient list anytime there's olive oil or salt or sugar or butter or those kinds of things, because I'm a proponent of a whole food plant exclusive diet without any added sugar, oil, or salt. And all of my food follows that criterion. So, pret-a-manger, ready to eat. So I was explaining to Chef AJ, it kind of comes from the fashion world, where we have couture, where each garment is made handmade, hand sewn. And then they usually have kind of a version that they're going to put in the department stores called pret-a-porter, which is ready to wear. So it kind of translated over into the food industry. We can have nice things. And let's move on. Let's look at the first dish. This one of my all-time idols is Charlie Trotter. So you'll see that I'm pretty Trotter heavy on these recipes, but I learned so much from the man, and he passed away a while ago. Rest in culinary heaven, Charlie. But some of his recipes are absolutely amazing, and this is taken from his book called Desserts. It's an elephant heart plum roulade with plum compote and pistachio emulsion. Most of you are like, wow, what's a roulade? What's a compote? What's an emulsion? Well, roulade is basically just a cake that's made into a roll. A compote is any kind of just cooked fruit concoction. And an emulsion sauce is basically a frothed sauce that has some sort of flavor floating in it, in this case, pistachio. But wow, we're not going to do all that. But let's take a quick look at the ingredients here. I'm going to magnify this up so you can see kind of what's going on in here. All right, so let's pick out the key ingredients. We've got the elephant heart plums. We've got simple syrup, which we don't use. We've got heavy cream, which we don't use. We've got mascarpone, which we don't use. We got sugar, which we don't use. The sponge cake, look at the sponge cake. There's really nothing in the cake that we eat. So we're not going to deal with the cake element at all. We're just going to deal with plums, pistachios, and we'll take a look at this emulsion sauce. He uses spinach to keep it a bright green color, milk, sugar, pistachios, and lime zest. But we'll get rid of the milk and the sugar. But let's keep the pistachios, and in the back of our head, let's keep this lime zest idea, because you'll be quizzed at the end on a relationship between pistachios and lime. So basically, what I would do with this recipe, if I wanted a simple dessert with the same flavor profile, is just take some perfectly ripe plums, cut them up in a bowl. You could heat them, you could make them warm just for more of a temperature contrast, and then just sprinkle with some chopped pistachios. How simple is that? 2 ingredients. If you have the right plums, Elephant heart plums are actually an heirloom variety that you don't see very much anymore because they don't travel well. They have to be picked and eaten kind of in the same day. So they don't really sell them very often. I get them occasionally from a specific grower, but any plum will work here. I prefer the red flesh ones. I think they're a little sweeter and have a little more interesting flavor, excuse me. But so that's as simple as we could get, a dish of plums sprinkled with some pistachios. At the end of this session, we're going to learn how to make a dessert whipped cream. We could certainly substitute pistachios for the nut element in that whipped cream and make a pistachio whipped cream. So this same bowl of like plums may be warmed slightly with a dollop of chilled pistachio whipped cream would be an awesome dessert that your friends would absolutely love. So how simple is that? That's definitely something you can make in a half an hour. So there you have it. That's the first one. That's a pretty simple one. This one's actually pretty simple too. This is from Thomas Keller, the great chef of the restaurant French Laundry in California and Per Se in New York, both 3 Michelin-starred restaurants. This is a puree of sunchoke soup with pickled red radishes and country bred croutons. And it comes from this book called Great Chefs Cook Vegan. So it's already vegan, but look at some of the stuff in here that we can't really eat. We see a cup of sugar. We see country bread, which is always kind of sketchy, olive oil, and salt. So those things we can get rid of. So let's pick out the sunchokes are the main element here. What makes this dish interesting is that we pickle these radishes, or these radishes are tossed in vinegar. So they're basically pickled. And then you get the crunch from the country bred crouton. So you can see this is like a velvety smooth soup. You get a little bit of crunch element from the croutons, and you get a little bit of flavor kind of zip from the pickled radishes. This would be really easy to make. I would just saute some onions and the sunchokes, cover them with water, or I'm sorry, with vegetable stock, like it says here, your favorite vegetable stock, cook them until they're tender. Sunchokes cook pretty fast, I'd say 15 to 20 minutes on a simmer. And then puree that in your Vitamix, and you've got your soup. And the radishes, you could basically just thinly slice them, toss them in, or put them in at like a cup of vinegar and stick them in your fridge overnight to get pickled. But an easier way would be what I'm going to show you at the end of the demonstration is how to make a thickened vinaigrette without using oil. And you could just simply toss the radishes with that and they'd be pickled instantly. So this is a relatively easy recipe. For the country bred croutons, what I would do is I would take my low sodium Ezekiel bread. I'd cut it into little cubes and I'd toast them in the oven for maybe 10 to 15 minutes until they're nice and crispy. And there you go. You could add some herbs to those too if you really wanted to bump up your croutons, but just plain would be fine. It's the crunch element is more important here than an herb element. So and then if you don't know what sunchokes are, they're sometimes called Jerusalem artichokes. They're pretty readily found these days. I see them everywhere, even in like junk food stores like the Jewel I have here in Chicago. I don't know what they're called out in California. Whatever the Albertson chain is out in your area. I call those junk food stores because they peddle junk food. But anyway, I see sunchokes all over the place, but what could we substitute? Well, I know I can't see the chat, so I would prefer to have, oh, I can see the chat. Oh, that's Chef AJ. Sorry, that's you. I could see substituting rutabaga here. I could see substituting turnip. Parsnip would be an interesting choice, although it's a completely different flavor. It's got a very much of a sweetness to it. Sunchokes themselves taste kind of like, wow, it's hard to describe. They have a very unique flavor. Some people say they taste like artichokes, hence the name Jerusalem artichoke, but I don't really think they taste that much like artichokes. They grow at the base of sunflowers. They're like a tuber. If you see them in the store, they look kind of like bloated ginger. And the peel is okay to eat, so you don't have to peel them. You just scrub them nice, and then they have just a really interesting, very nutty. I think they get the nuttiness from the sunflower itself. And there is a relationship there between sunflower seeds and sunchokes. I think it has kind of a sunflower seed flavor to it. Anyway, that's a nice soup that you could serve as a first course. I know you people are like, well, I don't really throw elaborate dinner parties. Well, treat yourself sometime. Treat yourself and your significant other to a nice dinner. You'll learn something. Let's move on. Speaking of rutabaga, this is another Charlie Trotter recipe, rutabaga gnocchi with roasted rutabaga, wilted sunflower sprouts, mushroom juice reduction, and mustard oil. Wow, that's a lot. To me, this screams pasta. So what could we do? Let's take a quick peek at the ingredients here. Got two kinds of mushrooms, rutabaga. We're skipping all the salt and pepper, flour, butter stuff. Got some fresh herbs, sunflower sprouts, mustard oil, sunflower seeds. I would pick out the mushrooms, the rutabaga, the sunflower seeds, and the mustard oil, or a mustard element of some kind. So to me, this screams pasta, obviously, because it's gnocchi to start with, but we're not going to make rutabaga gnocchi from scratch. That would take us a couple hours to do, but they are delicious. So what I would do is bake off a bean pasta. I'm a big fan of bean and lentil pastas, as long as they're single or 2 ingredient max. And I thought I'd share a couple of my favorites. I think you can see this on the overhead camera. This is a, where are we? There we are. This is Explore Cuisine. This is an edamame and mung bean fettuccine. This is the closest thing I've actually had in the bean pasta world that actually has the chewiness of real fettuccine. And the only ingredients are edamame flour, organic edamame flour, and organic mung bean flour. So it's a pretty clean pasta. The other one I really like and I use on a regular basis is called Ventilia. And these are elbows. They're made from green lentil pasta, green lentil, and that's the only ingredients, if you can read that, green lentil. I'm going the wrong way here. Green lentil flour is the only ingredient. So those two I have on hand all the time. Every time I see a new one on the market, I usually grab a package, and this one caught my eye. It's from the company called Al Dente, and it is a red lentil and sweet potato pasta. And those are the only 2 ingredients, red lentil flour and sweet potato flour. I thought Chef AJ would like this because I know she's a huge fan of sweet potatoes. So
that's very cool. Yeah.
I haven't tried it yet. I was going to make Swedish meatballs with that on top or underneath, but I didn't get around to it this holiday season. So maybe next year, but I'll use it for something else. Anyway, back to the recipe. So here I would just cube some or dice some rutabaga, roast it in the oven, toss it with the pasta. You could roast some mushrooms with the rutabaga at the same time in a like 9x13 pan in your oven, and just roast it however you normally roast your vegetables, the oil free. I usually just I toss them with some herbs, using water as the mechanism to coat, and then I roast them in the oven. And I would toss those things with the pasta, sprinkle some sunflower seeds on top. And then we want this mustard element. This is really easy. If you have a favorite low sodium mustard, I have a couple. I wouldn't recommend Dijon in this case, but if you have some sort of spicy brown mustard or whole grain mustard, Eden makes a really nice whole grain mustard. Just thin it out with a little water and drizzle that over the top, and it's going to make a delicious pasta dish. So let's move on to one more pasta. Here Here's another one that I think the presentation here is beautiful. Another Charlie Trotter recipe. Macaroni timbales in the style of Freddie Girardet with boniato, sweet corn, and chanterelle mushrooms. Wow. First of all, what are timbales?
It's timbales or timbales?
In Spanish, they're timbales. In every other place in the world, they're timbales. A timbale is usually a round ceramic dish that's used as kind of a molding vehicle, which is what he used here. He used like a ring mold to line up the pasta around here. And here's another one for you, Chef AJ, boniato. Do you know what that is?
No.
That is a white sweet potato that comes from the Caribbean.
Ooh, yum.
Yeah, you would probably like it. I've seen it once in the markets here, but it was a specialty market, so it's probably called other things too. Who knows? It could be a different type of white sweet potato that's in your market right now. But point is, any sweet potato would work here. And what I love about this recipe is I've used this combination of sweet potatoes, corn, and mushrooms. Is the most fabulous combination in the history of food, I think. And you can use it in anything. You can use it in burritos. You can use it in a pasta dish. You can use it in a salad. It's such a great combination. Sweet potatoes, corn, mushrooms. So again, I would make a pasta dish out of this. I'm going to skip over the ingredient checking on this because I want to get to demoing stuff. But anyway, those are the elements that I picked out here: sweet potato, corn, and mushrooms. Cook those, toss them with pasta, and now we kind of want a sauce. So what would be an easy sauce? The other element in this one, I'm not going to skip over the ingredients. I lied, because you need to see what the herbs are. Make this a little bit bigger. This recipe uses saffron, parsley, opal basil, and marjoram leaves. And wow, that sounds like a lot. I would actually also add onions to the pasta. But back to the herbs. I've made this dish 100 times, so there would be no way that you would know looking at this which herbs to pick out. But the ones that to me are the important ones are the saffron and the marjoram. Fresh marjoram takes this dish to a whole new level. Opal basil is just that purple basil that you see. It's a little bit more on the licorice side than regular basil, but you could use regular basil here if you wanted to use all the herbs. But in general, make sure you use the saffron and the marjoram here. And we can make a really simple sauce. Take some corn in a Vitamix, add enough water to make it into a sauce, and puree it with the saffron, and then just heat it and toss your pasta with it. Very simple. You can make that saffron corn sauce in 5 minutes if you have frozen corn in your freezer. Let's move on. Roasted beet, asparagus, and goat cheese terrine with mâche, dill, and 28-year-old balsamic. Another Trotter recipe. I told you I was heavy on the Trotters. This is beautiful to me, this picture, and I look at this, I'm like, wow. Terrines are basically usually made in sort of like a square loaf pan, and then they slice off a serving, and you can see this is like a slice of the terrine, this asparagus beet terrine. To me, this just screams salad. Just toss all of these elements as a salad: asparagus, beets, greens, and then you could, like I'm going to demonstrate at the end, make a balsamic vinegar thickened like I do at the end, or you could take your, I do this all the time. I use a really inexpensive balsamic that I buy at Trader Joe's. It's like $2.29 for like a quart, and you reduce it down until it turns into a syrup. It takes 15-20 minutes to boil it down to a syrup, and you could use that as the drizzle. But here, just take some greens. Here he uses mâche. Mâche is a lovely green, but I don't see it around anymore. It was really popular about 15 years ago. You saw it everywhere, and I think because it doesn't keep very long, it spoils in about 2 days. The agriculture industry decided that we don't need mâche anymore. Maybe in California it's different, but I love mash. If you can find it, use it, but easy substitutions would be something, we want something, mash is very nondescript, but has a very light tooth to it. So it's a light lettuce. It's almost like leaf lettuce lightness, but a little bit more complex. So you could easily substitute spinach, or even like a clamshell of those spring greens, like the baby lettuces. I know Earthbound Farms has like the baby romaine and the baby Swiss chard, and the spinach combinations. You could use that as your green. So a bed of greens, some roasted beets, some blanched asparagus. Asparagus I cook no longer than 2 minutes and 30 seconds, kind of regardless of the thickness. You want your asparagus to still have a little bit of crunch. There's nothing wrong with raw asparagus either. I actually like raw asparagus a lot. And then some dill, and you've got a great salad. It's a pretty easy thing to toss together. If you wanted to be bold, what do we do about this cheese element? Well, we want to add some fat maybe to our salad. So I would just sprinkle some walnuts on here, some toasted walnuts, and that would give it a little bit of fat for nutrient absorption. And you have a fabulous salad. All right, we're going to skip. That was that. This one you may have seen in my ads for the show today. Excuse me, I need some water. I've got a little froggy going on in my throat today.
You got a tickle. Those pictures are so beautiful.
Aren't they? And most people look at them and be like, oh, I'd never be able to make that. Yes, you can. Just a simpler version, and you make it your own that way. There's nothing wrong with taking a recipe and making it your own, as long as you don't get, I see people that, are substituting, I don't know, they substitute weird things for other things when you can just kind of take the elements. This, I will admit, this is a tough recipe. Grant Achatz is the owner and executive chef of Alinea here in Chicago. It is a 3-star Michelin restaurant. I've had the pleasure of eating there and meeting him and doing a stage there. And that's a story for another day, but regardless, it was an experience that although it wasn't my favorite experience in my history, it pointed out that it's not what I want to do. I don't want to spend 16 hours in a kitchen peeling chestnuts, which is what I did the first day.
Oh my.
So anyway, his food is beautiful and everything is so meticulously put together. You would look at this and you'd be like, wow, I could never make this. Well, let's do a variation on it, or pick out some key ingredients. This recipe actually has 3 pages of instructions. The first 2 are the ingredients and the sections. And the 3rd page is just putting it all together, how to assemble and serve. So instead of looking at the ingredients, let's just look at the separate dishes that are made here. We've got preserved Meyer lemons, vanilla pudding, vanilla lime vinaigrette. Keep this in your memory here, because we're going to actually make a vanilla lime vinaigrette at the end of the day here. Fava bean puree, Meyer lemon vinaigrette, roasted garlic mayonnaise, bulgur salad. And then we've got garlic. We've got a couple things of garlic here. Garlic chips. We've got a prune puree, coffee syrup, dried olives, truffle pumpernickel puree, truffle vinaigrette. Wow. And then we've got this whole page of garnishes. I'm just going to concentrate on the first one. We've got some avocado here and some chilies. So what I would do with this dish is my first clue kind of came from this bulgur salad. Let's make this into a grain salad. And it kind of screams Middle Eastern to me, with the fava beans and preserved lemons and the Meyer lemon vinaigrette. So I'm picking out certain things. We have roasted garlic. We have 2 garlic elements. We have a couple Meyer lemon elements. We have fava beans. We have bulgur, and we have hearts of palm, or heart of palm. I think that's kind of enough for a Mediterranean style salad. So let's make a bulgur salad. If you don't want to do bulgur, I brought a sample of something that I just learned about a couple of years back, and I really like it. I'm not sure if anybody has seen this. It's at Whole Foods. It's freekeh. It is wheat, so if you're not a wheat person, there's plenty of other grain alternatives to bulgur and freekeh. Freekeh is it's actually it's been roasted and rubbed, so it's got kind of this smoky flavor to it, and it has the same kind of chewiness as bulgur. So I really like it in this salad. So I would make a Mediterranean style salad out of these elements. So we're gonna make a Meyer lemon vinaigrette. We're gonna add some garlic to it. We're gonna add some chilies from the garnish, and we're gonna toss it all with pieces of heart of palm, fava beans, and the avocado that was in the garnish list. And if you kind of in your mind picture what that's going to taste like, it's going to be very close to like a tabbouleh, but with kind of added elements to it, a very Middle Eastern flavored thing. There are some herbs in here. I think there's chives. You could toss in some herbs too in the Mediterranean style, like parsley or chives and parsley. Maybe some mint would work as well. But that's kind of the dish that I would make out of this. He actually assembled these in flavor intensity. The first one is the most mild through the most intense. I might think about a different dish near the end, although I do like the prune element. Another thing I might add to my freekeh salad would be some sort of sweet element. Prunes are a little bit, excuse me. Prunes are a little bit big, I think, so maybe something smaller like a currant or a raisin, and that would really add to the Mediterranean-ness of this all. So let's move on. I'm going to clear my throat again. Sorry about that.
You got a tickle.
Okay. A couple of pictures here. A lot of you probably know Jose Andres. He's been in the news a lot lately. He does a lot of the food relief for Ukraine and natural disasters around the country. He's a pretty amazing chef. He studied with Ferran Adrià, who is the father of, or considered the father of molecular gastronomy. Started the restaurant El Bulli in Spain in the 80s. And pretty much is responsible for all these like restaurants that you see now with the 25 courses of 2-bite dishes with drizzles and foams and all that kind of stuff. He's the father of that, but Jose Andres studied with him. And he came up with this great combination of flavors, the tomato and watermelon. And it sounds kind of weird, but it really works. And this is from his book Tapas. And he also did a preparation for the Linda Long book, The Great Chefs Cook Vegan, where he just peeled the cherry tomatoes and put them on skewers. This is more of an appetizer, but this is not out of the realm of something you could make as an appetizer yourself. I wouldn't bother with using the fillet of tomato here. Why not just make it into a watermelon and tomato salad tossed together with some herbs? Basil would work really well. I've done a canapé of watermelon with horseradish and basil. All those things would work. It's pretty simple. Not too many ingredients. You just have to kind of, whoops. Sorry. I forget when I enlarge, I don't have to scroll. So yeah, this uses the fillets, watermelon cubes, fresh lemon juice, lemon zest, olive oil. So they basically, again, make a vinaigrette out of lemon and oil, which I'll show you we're going to do at the end without having to use the oil. So that's the dressing for it. It's a pretty simple dish. Looking at it, it looks really kind of daunting. But if you look at the recipe closely, it's pretty simple. All right, we're getting there. White corn pancakes with faux foie gras and apple juice reduction, another Charlie Trotter recipe. This one, I'm actually a little baffled by this. He was inspired by another chef that made a foie gras brunch dish, and he touts that this could be a brunch or a breakfast or even a light lunch kind of dinner. I think it's very brunch appropriate, but I'm not sure what he meant to be the faux foie gras elements. There's seared pears in here. There's a quince puree. There's corn. There's cornmeal or corn. What else he using there? He uses regular flour, I think. Sorry. All right. So what I would pick out of here would be the onions, the corn, apples, the apple element. He uses apple juice, but we're going to use full apples, whole apples, and then quince and French butter or Basque pears. Okay, that's pretty easy stuff to pick out there. I'll show you a dish that I made out of this inspiration from this dish. This is white flint corn grits, French toast with faux foie gras and apple, corn, and quince compote. So what I did was I was given, I'm a member of the Slow Food International Chef Alliance, and every once in a while they do one of these things for Arc of Taste. If you don't know, Arc of Taste is the society of that basically, it's kind of like in your town when people designate something as a historical building. The Arc of Taste designates something as an heirloom variety or historic variety of food that's in danger of being extinct, sorry, and not being produced anymore. So they're trying to get the white flint corn grits to be continued to be produced. So they asked chefs to create recipes. So I basically made a white corn polenta French toast, which you can see here, baked in the oven, and I served it with some seared, these are actually, I believe I used Asian pears, and then I made this quince, corn, and apple compote to go with it. That's still a little bit elaborate for all of you, so what I'm how could we make this even simpler? I'm not sure if I have any Southern listeners today or Southern viewers, but a big old bowl of grits would be super good with corn, onions, apples, and pears just cooked right in there. How does that sound, Chef AJ?
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, I every once in a while I just make a big old bowl of grits. I love grits. And you can make them savory, you can make them sweet, you can make them half and half. You could certainly make this a little more on the savory side by using the onions and the parsley, maybe add some greens. I would still keep a sweet element though, like the apple or the pear. If you happen to find quince are a little difficult to find. They're in season, usually late fall, kind of the same time as apples and pears. And they kind of look like a lumpy yellow apple, and they need to be cooked before you can eat them. And they have a very kind of elusive, perfumey flavor. If you just leave a bowl of quince out in your house, your whole house will be perfumed with them. It's a lovely smell. But if you can't find those, just make a big old bowl of grits. And you don't have to use white flint corn grits. You can just use any kind of grit, yellow, white, blue. And add stuff to it. All right, let's move on. All right, we're going to get to what we're going to make today. This is one more Charlie Trotter recipe: brown turkey figs, French melon and persimmon with arugula, wild watercress, and black pepper vanilla bean vinaigrette. I can't tell you how many hundreds of times I've made this vinaigrette. It's the most amazing thing, the combination of black pepper and vanilla with the lime, which is also in the dressing. So we're going to make this salad today with a few substitutions for the fruit, just because some of these things are not seasonal. Turkey figs are no longer in season. But I do have persimmons, and I have some Asian pear, and I have an interesting new melon that's on the market.
James,
So
are you going to keep your PowerPoint up when you cook? Because otherwise you're very, very small. You know that, right?
I can take it down as I cook.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think it'll work. I just want to put the recipe up for people to Wait, where am I? So this is the salad we're going to make. This is my version of Charlie Trotter's recipe. I can put this up later, or this can be put maybe in the program notes.
Yeah. So James, we're limited to 5,000 characters, and I was only able to get your bio and 2 recipes up out of the 4. So maybe there's a place they could get the other 2.
Okay. Or if you have capability, screenshot this.
Yeah, if anybody that's watching right now. Yeah, because I put the coconut whipped cream and the persimmon pudding and the Nutritarian vinaigrette with your bio in the show notes. So I wasn't able to fit in the other 2 recipes.
Okay, perfect. Because the vinaigrette is the basic recipe. So if you look at the proportions here, it's a half a cup of something, vinegar or citrus, and it can be anything. It can be flavored vinegar, balsamic, sherry vinegar, lemon juice, lime juice, yuzu, verjus. What are those things, Chef James? Well, yuzu is this kind of citron from Japan that has a very perfumey, it's very lemony in the lemon realm, but has a distinct flavor. It's very delicious. And verjus is basically green grape juice. They make a juice out of unripened, usually Chardonnay grapes, that's used a lot in salad dressings because it's kind of sharp, kind of tangy. And then a cup of water and 3 teaspoons of arrowroot powder. That's kind of the basic recipe for this thickened vinaigrette, which we're going to do. So I will, let's take this down. I will stop the share. And let me rearrange some fruit here. I have all these excuses today. I have a frog in my throat and my place is under construction, so you don't get to see it. So we're going to start with making the vinaigrette. You can see that on this screen. And the recipe calls for, hold on one second. You'd think I would know it by heart, wouldn't you? 3 tablespoons of lime juice, which I'm going to put in here. 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. I use this rice vinegar from Trader Joe's. It's inexpensive. It's about $2 for this bottle. 2 tablespoons of this. Whoops, got a little overboard there. And then the Riesling Reserve. I love these, and I know you have a different vinegar sponsor, so I'm not going to tout mine.
No, that's okay. You're welcome to promote another vegan brand. It's not a problem.
Right. And I like your California stuff too. Thank you for the samples last time. This is actually a company called Cuisine Perel, and they make a late harvest Riesling vinegar. I think California Balsamic also makes a similar vinegar. Can you see that label?
A little higher up, a little bit higher. Yes. Oh, I've seen that. Dr. Furman does that brand.
Exactly. This is the Dr. Furman company that packages for him. And anyway, it's delicious. If you want like a sweeter type vinegar, it's really good. 3 tablespoons of this. Cup of water. Then we're going to need another 1/4 cup that we're going to add the arrowroot to dissolve in. So we're going to get this cooking. So we're basically going to bring this to a boil, and then we're going to add the arrowroot mixture. So I've got a 1/4 cup of water here. I'm going to take, I use Bob's Red Mill arrowroot powder. You could, in a pinch, use cornstarch if that's what you have. We're going to go 3 teaspoons of this. Just going to whisk that together. It's dissolved. Then we wait for this to boil. And while we're waiting, we're going to do the cracked black pepper. Oh, we forgot the vanilla bean. How could I? That's also going to go in here. In general, if you watch the last appearance I was on this show, I made a vanilla sabayon.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you, just throw the whole pod in there. Well, for this, we're going to want to actually do the usual vanilla bean ritual of scraping out the inside. So what I do is cut off. Can you see this okay? What I'm doing here?
Yeah, I can see the little pot that you're cooking on right below you. Yep.
But can you see me doing the vanilla bean?
No, I cannot. Now, yeah, I can see a little bit of your bean. Yep, your bean is, yeah, you
Okay,
want to.
so I cut off the little nibs on the ends because they're kind of hard. We're just going to discard those. And then we're going to go, I just go right up the center. So a nice and juicy one that has lots of guts, which is good. But it's also being feisty. All right. So we got that opened up, and we're just going to scrape the pulp. You want to make sure that you just get the pulp. We're going to throw the whole bean in there too, so we don't lose anything. But since each one of these little dots of vanilla is probably about 5 cents a piece, we want to make sure we get it all. That's why we use the whole pod. Let's put that in there, throw the pod in. Got a little bit of waste here. Okay. So this is boiling. I'm going to add the arrowroot mixture. Done.
How do you know when to use arrowroot and how to know when to use cornstarch? Like, how do you decide, James, which thickener to use?
I just think that cornstarch is a less healthful option. I think it's fine. I think the jury's just out on how it's produced and whether it's GMO or not. So I just prefer to stick with arrowroot. And we're going to just let this simmer for about 2 minutes. I'm going to turn it down so it doesn't boil over. Just keep it at a little bit of a low boil for about 2 minutes. You don't want to overcook it, and you don't want to over stir arrowroot too, because arrowroot will actually regress and not be and thin out if you overcook it and stir it too much. So we're just going to let it go for 2 minutes. Actually, I'll let you guys, I'll let you all pretend that that's 2 minutes. So I would take this off the burner and just set it aside. And for ease, I chilled some already, or I cooled some down. So we're going to go. All right, didn't know what I did with it. So I have some that's already chilled. And you can see how it's kind of viscous now. The reason I do this is because I see people with these big salads and they douse them with just straight up vinegar, and they end up with no flavor on their salad and a big trough of vinegar in the bottom of their dish. And the reason that vinaigrettes are so popular is because it's like we talked about earlier. It is basically an emulsion sauce where where the vinegar is the flavor floating in the emulsifier, which is the olive oil. But we're not using olive oil, so we need to somehow make this thicker so that it's going to stick to our salad. So we need to add some black pepper to this. You want to take your pepper mill and let this out a little bit, because you really truly want like halved or quartered peppercorns for this dish, because you want that sensation of kind of biting into one and getting a little bit of zip. Some people don't like black pepper. If you wanted to, you could substitute poppy seeds. Would be a nice little crunch as well without the black pepper heat. But this is really what I think brings it over the top, is this combination of the vanilla and the black pepper.
And James, Kelly wants to know if you can use vanilla powder instead of a vanilla bean.
Absolutely. I just like vanilla beans because I found a relatively inexpensive source where they're about 96 cents a bean, which I can make work for me. If you buy them in the straight up store, though, they're $3 to $4 a piece. I need to wipe this off. So we're going to add about a tablespoon, maybe a little scant, but actually we're going to take out the fish out the vanilla bean pods before we do that. And you can just discard the pods. Whisk in the black pepper. Whoops.
What have you been doing since your last appearance? Anything special? Writing any books?
Well, I began nationwide shipping, which is kind of a big deal.
Whoa, tell us about it. That sounds amazing.
Well, if you go to my website, chefjamesnutrition.com, you can see all the food that I have for sale. And do a quick wipe down here. Everything's available to the 48 contiguous states. There is a $150 minimum, though, to make shipping costs worthwhile for me. How do
you ship it? Yeah, how do you ship it?
I use an eco-friendly shipping box. Let me show you. This is what the inside looks like. Green cell foam. You can dissolve it in water, compost, or burn the foam, and you can recycle the plastic with your plastics. So it's a great way to, and it's a 48-hour box, so it gives me two days of guaranteed frozenness, if you will. All right, I'm going to move this back over here a little bit, I think. Can you see this board right here at least?
I can see, yeah, your two hands. Yep.
Okay. So we're going to make the salad now. We're going to pick some fruit. You may have seen my persimmons at the beginning of the show. I'm a complete persimmon head. This year was actually a very big disappointment. I probably only had about 100 persimmons this season, and I buy cases and cases and cases. My whole dining room table is filled with them, especially these babies, these Achatz, which when they're ripe, they turn into absolute candy. They're my favorite thing. These are called Sharon fruit. They're marketed as Sharon fruit, but they're a variety of Fuyu persimmons. So there are two varieties that are sold, Fuyu and Achatz. Achatz need to be soft and goopy before you can eat them. These you can eat hard or let them get soft. That's because they're non-astringent. These, if people have ever tried them and they weren't ripe, it will hurt your mouth if you bite into an unripe one. They're astringent when they're hard. So you want to make sure that you use soft ones, and we're going to use those Achatz for our pudding, because they're really super sweet. For the salad, I'm going to use one of these Sharon fruits or fuyus. There's another smaller kind of fuyu that I had still around. And I'll show you how to clone these. I'm going to prepare our fruit first. So basically with this, you do kind of want to peel the fuyus. The skin's kind of tough, but I'm actually going to eat that later. So I like the skin. I'm going to cut off the top as well. And then we're just going to peel down the side. I usually use this little tomato knife to peel fruits like this. And don't worry about these little brown spots on here. They're actually just pockets of sugar as the fruit develops. Okay.
Does your menu change weekly, daily? How does it work with your food launch service?
It doesn't, no specific timing. If I run out of something, then I replace it with something else. But I very rarely make the same things over and over again. It's usually new food all the time. So I'm just going to cut this in half, and I'm going to thinly slice it. And you can see the kind of pretty starburst inside here. I'm not liking this little dark edge, though. I'm going to just trim that right off. Slice here. Actually, do that. All right, so we have our persimmon. Finish that later. Then we're going to choose a, I'm sorry?
But always forget, which persimmon is the hard and which is the soft?
The fuyus are the hard ones, but you can also let them get soft too, which is what I usually do. I think hard, they're a little too bland for me. I like them a little more developed and a little sweeter. We're going to pick out some sort of pear. Well, Asian pear. I'm going to use Asian pear since I've got a ton of Asian pears. These are kind of a little variety. I've got some bigger ones here. I picked up some Seckel pears yesterday that are really good too. That would be delicious in this salad, but I think I'm going to go with the Asian pear. And I actually don't like to peel Asian pears because I like the texture of the skin. It's a little gritty, similar to Seckel pears. Seckel pears have kind of a gritty, sandy skin, and I like it. So cut these open. I'm going to just use a quarter, I think, for each serving. Cut out the center. Big knife here and just thinly slice this way. Put that up here. What we're making is called a composed salad. In other words, it has elements that are separate. It's not all tossed together, which I like. We're also going to use some, like I said, the fresh figs are out of season, but I'm going to use some of these dried white figs. They're sometimes called calamurnas. Sometimes these are the turkey figs dried. Just going to take the stem off and cut a few slices here. Set those aside. And then we have melon as an element. I'm not sure if any of you have seen these. These are brand new to me. These are personal melons. They're called Solara. They are grown in a greenhouse 365 days a year. They are completely sustainable. And they market them as mini gallias, which is my favorite melon. So I'm like, I'm sold. I saw these in 2 different markets this week. They had them at Trader Joe's, and they also had them at, we have a market here in Chicago that's an Asian and Hispanic market called We. I love the name. We. It's like WEEEE exclamation point. And I bought some of these at We. So we're going to use these little personal melons. Easy way to peel a whole melon is just to cut the top off and the bottom. And then just go down the sides like that. Kind of saw me do the same technique with the persimmon. But you could do this with a full like cantaloupe too, and it's an easy way to, if you're making like a fruit salad, to quickly cut a cantaloupe. And then the seed pocket is pretty solid, but we need a spoon to get rid of it. So I'm scooping out the seeds. I'm actually going to go over here and do that because it's kind of a mess, kind of juicy. And I'll save the other half for myself for lunch. And again, I'm just going to slice this. It's a little tricky. Y'all make me nervous. I don't know why I'm nervous.
Nothing to be nervous about.
I know. We're just having fun cooking. All right. We'll make that prettier in a second. Okay. We've got the melon, we got the pears, we got the figs, we got the persimmons. Now we need some greens because it is a salad after all. I love some of these things that people call salads that are my mother's nursing home used to call like a Jello and marshmallow. We used to call it Jello and marshmallow salad. I'm like, really? All right, we're going to take some arugula. We've got some arugula that's washed already and ready to toss. We're just going to put in a few teaspoons of our vinaigrette. That's probably enough, maybe a little bit more. And we're going to toss that. Don't mind my fingers, but I'm going to eat this for my lunch, so I don't care. I'm going to make this kind of pretty too. I think arugula is such a pretty green anyway. So
It sounds good too.
Right here. Take a few of these bigger leaves and put them here. Yeah, that one's kind of ugly. Okay. Now we're going to arrange our fruit. We've got our Asian pear. Got our persimmon over here. Got our figs.
Wow, Kelly says she's never had a persimmon.
Really?
Yeah.
You're missing out, girl.
And they're very unique. There's really nothing that tastes like a persimmon.
Absolutely. And our melon. Let's get this. This melon is a lot softer than we thought it was. Okay. And then we're just going to drizzle a little bit more dressing over the fruit.
And you are really an artist.
Well, the other thing I thought about this dish, part of the reason why I like these thickened vinaigrettes is because a lot of the dressings, especially us Nutritarians that follow Dr. Fuhrman, they're all like nut based and they're really heavy and thick and creamy. So if you already have a nut element on your salad, you're adding nuts on top of nuts. Now, if I've learned one thing from working with people that are trying to lose weight and trying to follow the Fuhrman methods of eating, there's no shortage of nuts.
Yeah.
Love their nuts all the time. So what I would suggest is adding a nut element here. What nuts do is actually they make nutrient absorption of the greens work better. So I thought what would, and here's where the quiz part comes in. What would go well with lime? Which nut would go well with lime? If you were paying attention at the beginning to the plum roulade, you would have seen a correlation there.
I would have thought macadamia would go good with lime, just in my mind.
You know, that's good. I think, yeah, with the fruit selection, though, maybe not, but yeah, I could see that. I actually opted for pistachios.
Well, oh yeah, pistachios for sure.
Pistachio emulsion with the plum roulade had lime zest in it. So I think I'm just gonna, excuse me, sprinkle some chopped pistachios over the top of this. Give it a little bit more, give it a little fat so that it's a little more substantial. And there you have it. I think it looks pretty close to the Trotter picture, although I would never, ever compare myself to Charlie. Absolute genius, but he has inspired me to create dishes like this.
Do you have his book that he wrote with Roxanne Klein called Raw?
I do. I actually was at the book signing.
Isn't that a beautiful book?
It's gorgeous. I almost did a couple recipes out of there, but the pad thai is really nice, and there's another watermelon salad in there similar to Jose Andres, but I didn't want to be too heavy on Trotter. But yeah, I actually, and I've eaten at Roxanne's restaurant when it was there too, and it was an absolute amazing experience. It's unfortunate what happened to it, but
yeah, I got to eat there, I think 3 times. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, we ate there the first time was when San Francisco was having the worst storm they've had in like decades, and the lights were all out. And we're crossing the Golden Gate Bridge going to the restaurant, and we're like, why are we doing this? There's like a hurricane going on. And in the distance, we see that everything's black. And in the distance, we see these lights. And it was Roxanne's restaurant. She had solar power. Everything was solar powered. So she didn't need electricity. So we went there and ate in the middle of this like monsoon happening in San Francisco. It was amazing. All right, let's do the persimmon pudding. We have time, right?
Yep.
All right, hold on a second.
Just got another show at 11, so.
I'm sorry?
I got another show at 11, so we got to be done before.
Oh, okay.
11.
I'm going to trade out this, my induction thing for my Vitamix. It'll take you just 1 second. I can't move this camera, unfortunately, because it's definitely in one spot only. Whoops. Okay. Can you see that okay?
I can
see
see a little bit of your cutting board and a little bit of your blender.
Okay, that should work. All right, so I'm going to go back to screen sharing. Sorry. because I want to go over one more recipe. Okay, this is the another Charlie Trotter recipe that I was inspired by. Meyer lemon pudding cakes with persimmon and tarragon anglaise. Anglaise is just kind of a fancy word. It's usually like a creamy white sauce, but it looks more like in this photo, it looks more like an emulsion or a froth. And I could be wrong. Some anglaises probably are froth too. But anyway, I looked at this and I thought, what a great combination. The Meyer lemon and persimmon. Persimmons are really helped out by a lot of citrus. But we're going to make my Persimmon-Kumquat pudding. I decided to use kumquats instead of Meyer lemons. And we're going to top it with some coconut whipped cream. And I'll show you how to make a dessert whipped cream that you can substitute all sorts of different nuts, whatever you have on hand. So I will stop sharing so you can see a little bit better. And first, we're going to pick our persimmons. I kind of already picked out. Well, let me show you because there's a. You want them to the Achatz to be so soft that they look kind of wrinkly and old. And even if you, these are probably been sitting here ripening a month. Persimmons really don't go bad. Occasionally you'll get one that molds from the inside out, but that was because they weren't stored properly. But in general, they just sit and they ripen and ripen until they turn into this sweet candy. So that's why I can buy cases and cases and just let them sit. And then when I have a whole influx of them, I make things like this pudding. So I'm going to choose 4 of these that are super ripe. The other 3 that were there were still hard. So we just want to take out the calyx here, which is this kind of leafy green thing. Typically, Achatz do not have seeds, but I run a knife just in case. Every once in a while, I'll find a pit. And you don't want that in your blender. So these just kind of pull right out, twist right out. I'm going to just run a knife sideways through them. Make sure there's no pit. You can see how pretty that inside is with the.
Yeah, it's like a pattern, like a star.
Yeah, it's like a starburst. It's so pretty. Before those, skin and all, you can eat the skin as well. And then we're going to put in some kumquats, which is my citrus element. So you could think of this as, you know, in the inspiration recipe, he uses Meyer lemon as the citrus. You can use any kind of citrus. Persimmons especially, they go well with lime, lemon, Meyer lemon, any kind of vinegar. And I'll show you the vinegar I'm going to use to kind of help boost the flavor too. So here are the kumquats. The kumquats are like my favorite thing. I'm going to have one right now because I can literally sit here and eat a bowl of them. If you're not familiar what they are, they're these tiny little, I call them reverse oranges. Whoops.
Yeah, they're so good.
They're basically sour and tart on the inside, like the sweet flesh of an orange would be. I mean, would be sweet on the inside of an orange, but these are sweet on the outside. The rind here is the sweet part. So it's this kind of sweet, sour flavor that's just wonderful. And I'm going to put in about 10 or so of these. We'll see what happens. And then we're going to just get it to blend together with a little coconut water. And I'm going to add some of Dr. Furman's blood orange vinegar to actually bump it up even further. You could use, instead of coconut water, you could also use orange juice. I have some I like this to use. I make an orange dressing out of this tangerine juice from Trader Joe's. Really like that. You could use that as your citrus, all sorts of things. I'm going to use coconut water today just to match the whipped cream a little bit. We're going to see. We don't need a lot because those will be kind of juicy. I don't know if I'm, do you want me to mute while the blender's running?
Oh, no, because Zoom will actually do it itself.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's been doing it for a while. Marta, your question about how do you store them properly, what are you referring to? And I'll ask Chef James when he's done blending. Do you mean the persimmons? And guys, don't forget we have a show at 11 with Dr. Sunil Pai.
And as you can see, it already gets kind of pudding-like right in the blender. It's very thick and pudding-like. It's kind of spongy. And that's really all we need to do. I'm going to taste it to see if I want to add anything to it. I may want to add a little vinegar. I'm going to add a little bit of vinegar.
Yeah. Chef James, Marta says, what is the best way to store persimmons properly?
Room temperature, calyx side down on a flat surface, and just keep an eye on them. They'll ripen at different paces. Calyx down for hachiyas, calyx up for fuyus. And if you're going to let your fuyus get soft, those are the ones you can eat hard as well. Yeah, and that's it. Just keep them at room temperature. And when if you get like a whole influx of like 10 of them that are all ripe at the same time, put them in the fridge. That'll stop the ripening, and they'll stay in the fridge for a week or two, even 2 weeks. They're very friendly. I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of this Dr. Furman blood orange vinegar.
Have you ever had dehydrated or dried persimmons?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever had either dehydrated or dried persimmons?
Yes, those would actually work in here as well. I would soak them a little bit ahead of time. Trader Joe's used to sell dried fuyu persimmons, but I haven't seen them. But if you have dried ones, that would work in here too. You just have to... Does not want to take my air pocket here. I want to keep it pudding like that really just bumps it right up. It's so good. And so sweet. All right, so I'm going to put this in a bowl. Comes out pretty easily because it's very gelatinous once you blend that together. I think it's because of the pectin and the kumquats. It keeps it kind of nice and pudding-like. And then I'm going to give this a quick rinse. Okay, sorry about that. All my blender tops are in use right now. This is the only one I have.
How many blenders do you have?
I have 2 blenders and I have about 4 or 5 blender tops.
Wow.
But right, so now we're going to put this aside and we're going to make the whipped cream that's going to go on top. So in the recipe, it calls for 1.5 cups of nuts of your choice. So if you remember back to the plum roulade dessert with the fresh plums, you could make a pistachio whipped cream, which would be absolutely amazing, on top of some perfectly ripened plums. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use, I've been kind of fancying this combination of walnuts and hemp, and especially the flavor of hemp in the whipped cream. It adds, I'm sure you've had hemp. It tastes kind of nutty. I'm using 1/2 cup of hemp, and I'm using 1 cup of walnuts, and I'm using 1 tablespoon or 2 of coconut. And again, we're going to blend those with coconut water. Oh, we need some dates. I forgot the dates. Hold on 1 second. Dates are my sweetener of choice. I know they are yours as well, Chef AJ.
Me too. Have you ever had the Bari dates, Bahri?
I have.
They are so good.
Yeah. There's so many different varieties. My sister sends me like date variety packs like every year. And I've tried some of the most unusual ones, the honey ones, the Baris, the
Kalas, have you had the Kalas?
Yep.
Yeah, I think
I can't
Bari is
remember
still
all of the names. So 12 deglets go in here. So I always run a knife. I buy these by the case, but I run a knife because you don't want to pick. That's 5. That's 10. Just to be on the safe side. And that's 12. And these are kind of really small, so I'm going to add 3 more. And then we're going to, now this is kind of up to you all. You can bump up the coconut flavor if you really want to highlight that element. I've got 2 different choices. Dr. Furman just came out with this coconut vinegar, which is absolutely incredible. I'm going to use like a teaspoon of this. Or you could use a coconut extract. This is a Frontier. It's glycerin based. So I don't know how you feel about glycerin, but it's glycerin and coconut flavor.
I don't know. Is glycerin sugar? I don't really know.
No, glycerin is like a, I don't want to tell you how I know what glycerin is. My mother used to give me glycerin when I was a kid to make things operate more smoothly, if you know what I mean. Wink. So that's what glycerin is. I'm going to put a little bit of this in too. Why not?
I know I've seen it in alcohol-free vanilla extract glycerin.
Yeah, that's basically what they use as the base for alcohol-free extracts, is glycerin in general. So let's see how this goes. Right, want to make it move enough that it can be fluffy, which is what I did. I'm going to give this a taste. That's like perfect. I won't change a thing. I like the idea of the coconut vinegar because the vinegar really just bumps it up.
I love vinegar. Some people don't use it or think it's healthy, but I think it's so delicious.
Right. So that's why I gave the alternative of using the extract if you wanted to bump it up. If you didn't want to use those at all, that would be fine too. It'd be a little less coconutty just because of the coconut in the actual whipped cream. So let's make this. Let's make this thing. Put it together. Actually, I'm going to go this way. So we're going to take our persimmon pudding. Scoop that out. Okay. Top it with some of the whipped cream. And I like lots of whipped cream. I don't know about you all.
Yeah, you gotta have a lot of whipped cream.
Yeah. And then we're going to make it kind of fancy. Let's grab a kumquat and make some little pinwheels. Take the pinwheels. And then looking back at that recipe, what was the herb in the Meyer lemon pudding?
Let's see.
Do you remember? There was a tarragon on glaze was the sauce. So I have some fresh tarragon here.
Do you ever use lemon verbena?
Lemon verbena would work in this as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Have you ever done an Iron Chef?
I have not. You talked about having me do one against Chef Martin.
I think it'd be great. Actually, you guys are well matched, I think.
I just talked to him last week. He's doing well. He's moving back to Austria.
Oh my.
He's got some things to take care of in the United
Ay,
States.
ay, ay.
All right. Let's just prop that up so you can see that. I never know which way the camera goes. Get this out of the way. That looks like a delicious dessert that I want to eat.
Oh my God, you're plating. You don't, do you ever do classes just on plating?
Well, you know, I get that a lot with my food too. And that's what I want to tell, people are like, it's too pretty to eat. I'm like, no, food should be pretty. You should make it as pretty as you possibly can. And I do all the old food styling for my website. So if you want to look at some pretty food pictures, there's quite a few there as well.
Do you teach any classes currently?
Currently, no, but I'm open to privates and group lessons if anybody wanted to get a group together. I prefer to teach in the person's home, though, so that they get used to using the tools that they have. But a lot of times people don't want me to come in their kitchen because I'll tell them to throw that away, throw that away. throw that away. You can't eat that. I also do kitchen makeovers too. So if you're interested in really starting a new lifestyle, I can help you with that as well. And I think that's it from me. I just want to, throw a challenge out there to everybody to, experiment. And next time you go to the produce market, buy something that you have no idea about and figure out something to do with it. And people are so afraid of failure. And I have to say, I learned so much from my failures, and I've made some clunkers over the years, trust me. But it's learning about the food and learning how to cook. I want people to get excited about cooking instead of thinking about it as this drudgery, like, oh, I got to do this, and oh, it's my food prep day. And honestly, set some time aside every day to make some food for yourself. You're worth it. You're worth it more than the expensive gas for your Mercedes. Yet you're worth putting the good fuel into your body. And you're going to feel good about making things once you learn how and take notes and think about how flavors work with each other. And then again, if you don't want to ever do that, then you can call me and you can order food from me.
Nice. Let's see. Elizabeth says, what kind of coconut did you use?
It's Let's Do Organic, unsweetened coconut.
Too. They also have a low fat one too.
This is the low fat one, I believe.
Nice. And Marta says, what kind of knives do you use?
That's a good question, because I just recently broke my see how this chipped off. My handle chipped off. This was my knife of like 20 years, my baby. And he just broke. So I bought a new one, and it's a Henkel's. I like Henkel's, and I use a steel knife so that it's I just like the weighting of it. And I think all of my knives are Henkel's, yeah. But I usually buy them individually as I need them. I don't buy like the sets, because I think sometimes they give you cheaper quality knives in those sets. So
yeah. Karen says, this was marvelous. Thank you, Chef James. They love to learn from you. You're an exquisite presenter. And I'm sure your food tastes as good as it looks.
You're welcome. Thank you. I think it does. I eat it every day.
I don't think you'd be doing this for 30 years if it didn't. So thank you so much. And yeah, talk to Chef Martin if you guys would like to do that, It wouldn't be, it would be a friendly competition. And you each need to have a person in your home or somewhere that I could, secretly email to get the 3 secret ingredients, which will of course be things that, are available to people, like, in all parts of the world.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
And of course, any pantry ingredients can be used as well. So if you had cooked rice or something, that could be added. It's just the 3 secret ingredients would have to be used in the dish in a significant way. And depending on the time, you guys could do 1 savory and 1 sweet. But generally, you get about 20 minutes per recipe.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. If I talk to him, I'll mention that to him.
It sounds like a lot of fun. Thanks so much. This was a lot of fun.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Chef AJ.
My pleasure. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back at 11 when my guest is Dr. Sunil Pai, and he's going to be talking